Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and sorry for the short notice. I have several business things I was dealing with, um, which took priority. But I am able to spend a little bit of time and do a kind of a preview of uh, the compact NBA slate for this evening. Uh, you'll note that it does not start until 8 p.m. Eastern. So for the live look, we're going to probably go about 7:15. We're going to start. Uh, Part of that coincides nicely with the NFL showdown slate, and I think NHL is going to be the one that has to take it on the chin. So again, very very late notice to go live here. So if we don't get people showing up, that's okay. It's going to be recorded anyway, so you can feel free to catch it on the YouTube recording. In any case, 4 games. You have Milwaukee, Memphis, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Utah, Philly against the Clippers, and we're going to do the same thing as always. We're going to go game by game, and then we're going to do a sim showing you again how to use SaberSim efficiently. We'll show you how to upload your lineups and all of that stuff. Okay. Let me fire up my projections here, and then I will fire up the screen. And again, even if you guys aren't here, it's fine. I need to do this for my own benefit as well. All right, Milwaukee and Memphis. Now, before we even get into it, looking at this from kind of a top down, the value is just kind of okay right now, and it's nothing particularly cheap. So if you're looking to get some studs here like Giannis or Luka or even Wemby, it's going to be difficult to do. So we're going to see what kind of lineups we actually get once we start applying this stuff. But okay, so Milwaukee and Memphis, as I mentioned, I do have Giannis as a very good play. It's just a question of whether we can afford it, but we will figure that out. We'll figure that out once we start building. But let's put him in just for now because he does look to be the, one of the top projected players, if not the top projected player on the slate. 20% owned, something like that, and we'll just see if we can't get him in. Memphis. Well, before I get to Milwaukee, to Memphis, the next couple of guys I have projecting at about 5x would be Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez. I'm inclined to not want to play them in the same lineup, but we'll just see if we get there anyway. But Portis is 6K, and Lopez probably about the same, like 5,500. That looks all right. What else from Milwaukee? Damian Lillard, 8,800. Seems like a pretty reasonable price. I have him below one or two guys at a similar price. Actually, I have him tied with, like, him and Booker to me are very similar, and I had Booker kind of lower owned. We'll get to that in a minute. And different position, but I would say, he's about the same as Durant I have from Phoenix as well. So I guess he's all right. We'll see how what we actually get. All right, Memphis. Let's put him in, by the way. Put in Lillard before we do anything else. And then we'll take a look at Memphis. And again, just on a points per dollar basis, nobody really looks that great. Boy, it's probably my least favorite team as far as value goes on the whole slate. I mean, the first guy I have rated is like the 25th best value. So it doesn't look like I'm going to be getting too much from this, if not anything. So Jaren Jackson Jr., I would say, is the best at 7,400, but even that doesn't look so terrific. So in this first game, it's not particularly inspiring. I mean, Portis, Lopez, Giannis, Lillard, any of them are fine, but I have a feeling that we're going to get the majority of our juice in the later games, but we'll just see. Just check if see people. Yeah, a couple of people popped in. All right, good. All right, Houston, Dallas. I think a very, very strong play today is Kyrie Irving. At 7,500, he's showing up as a pretty good point per dollar play and just kind of good raw points. You combine that, you get a good Sheets value score. I have it at 166, which is pretty good to say the least. And I don't play Kyrie Irving too much, but he's been showing up in some of my builds this year. So I'm curious to see how that turns out. So I do like him quite a bit. I'm certainly not going to be the one to tell you not to play Luka, but it's just a question of whether you can afford him or not. Another value that I'm seeing here, there are two. One is PJ Washington. He's under 5K. He's 4,800. He looks pretty good. And then the other two guys I have are the other bigs. So I have Daniel Gafford at center. And then he's 4,500, which is, obviously very useful on a day like this. And then Derek Lively looks like a pretty good value as well. Now, is all this value going to be good enough to get to Luka / Giannis? Well, we're going to see. But Lively looks good. Gafford looks pretty good. PJ Washington looks pretty good. But it's not like they look great. They're all about 5X or so, which is not the greatest value in the world. But compared to the rest of the slate, I mean, we have only one guy that rates better than PJ Washington, points per dollar, that is cheap, and we're going to get to him in a minute. So again, on a relative basis, PJ Washington looks pretty good here. All right, now I mentioned another cheap guy who's going to rate pretty well. We'll just start with Utah and Jordan Clarkson at 5,200. He, I have him about 5.2x right now. And again, it's going to be very useful to play him on this type of slate. Also, Keontae George at 5,700. Looks pretty good. Is he shooting guard? Or is he? What is Keontae George nowadays? He is a point guard, actually. Point guard only. So this looks fairly decent. As far as like spend ups, are there any spend ups on Utah? I mean, not really. I mean, Lowry at 7,800. I really don't have him rated all that high. So as far as Utah goes, again, kind of value stuff like Keontae George and Jordan Clarkson. San Antonio, you have Wemby, who's competing, nowadays for that stud part of people's builds, and what's annoying, well, he's center only, and center only is, it's tough. There are always a lot of good center plays, but I think that he's certainly one of them. They have him a good point per dollar. He has good, just regular upside and ceiling and just raw points. He's just a very, very good play. Question of whether we can get to him, and I don't know. I think we can. But the real value from this game, as we see quite frequently nowadays, is Jeremy Sohan. And I was talking about this with Bobby the other day. That when you don't have these big 7X, 8X cheapos, you'll see the way the lineup construction and salaries work. These $5,100 to $5,900 players become very important. And I imagine Jeremy Sohan is going to fit a lot of lineup builds tonight. Now, again, it's a little dangerous because, as I mentioned earlier, maybe earlier in the week, it's not exactly an offensive juggernaut. Listen, these are all fine. 40 fantasy points at 5,800, but it's not as if it's huge ceiling. And if at 35+% ownership, you got to be careful about playing too much of guys like this in GPPs. But he certainly looks like, or especially in lottery GPPs, he certainly looks like a good point per dollar play. Anything else in San Antonio or Utah? Nope. And let's go on to the last game, and then we'll run some sims. Phoenix and LAC. James Harden, I think, is a very legitimate, competitor for that stud ownership. He's 9,100. I think he looks really, really good. And the other two guys from LAC that I should mention, one is the top point per dollar play on the slate, and that would be, drumroll, Zubac. Zubac at 6,500 has been, he didn't do well in his last game, but a couple of games before that, he had a 60 and a 50. I mean, that's like some serious upside here. I have him at 35% projected ownership, which is, certainly not, it's very healthy ownership projection, but it's a very, very strong play. So, and the last piece on the Clippers I should mention, who also rates very well, is Norman Powell at 5,600. So, we'll figure out a way to stack that in a second, either by hand or otherwise. But let's look at Phoenix. I mentioned that Devin Booker, I kind of, rated him and Durant very similar to Lillard. And I think maybe we're supposed to do this, maybe to save the money to get down to these types of guys like Durant, Lillard, and Booker, to save money, not have to spend up on Giannis and Luka. Maybe it is worth it on a day that doesn't have too much value. But we'll look and we'll see what we actually get. And one other guy I should mention on Phoenix who's showing up as a good point per dollar play, this guy I didn't even realize was on Phoenix, and that would be Tyus Jones. Not the greatest play in the world, but, a solid 5X type option here. So, again, if you want to kind of hand build stack, I mean, you can just go ahead and play something like Harden, Powell, Zubac, and then, pick your favorite son. Durant fits this build a little better because of the positions. So you could do this. Like if you think this game's going to go off in some way, you could play this. Or on the other hand, if you wanted to play the San Antonio game, you thought that game might outperform, you could do something like, again, even though I said it might be a little fishy, still, Sohan and then maybe Wemby on one side, and on the Utah side, play, who's it, the Keontae George? And who else? And Sexton? Not Sexton, Clarkson. And you can get something going. You can get something going like that, like if you wanted. Or, I never talked about Houston. Huh, interesting. Let me take a look. Sorry about that. It's funny. Only 8 teams. I forgot one. I'm glad I caught that because you do have Fred VanVleet, who's looking like a pretty good play here. I have him rated like 6th or 7th overall point per dollar at 77,000. That's pretty good. So I do like that. So if you played him with, say, Kyrie, and then maybe one of these cheapos, like either whether it be PJ Washington or who's the other one, Derek Lively or Gafford, you can certainly do that. But I'm not getting anybody else from Houston. Like I'm not getting Sengun really. So Milwaukee, Memphis is really not much to stack because there's nothing good on the Memphis side. So that's one way you can play if you didn't want to. You didn't want to run the Sims, but let's go ahead and do that. Let's put our projections in here and see what we get. But actually, before I do that, well, let's save these. Okay, it's very important if you're going to use this to make dummy lineups on DraftKings and then upload them thusly. You download it into a CSV. SaberSim is nice enough to automate that for you. And then up we go. Okay. And again, the import of this is it saves all this contest data so that when you run the Sims, it's got everything pre-saved of what you need to do here. So let's go to build one, and we will upload this. And I'm going to predict what I think we're going to get. This is going to be pre-sim. I think we're going to get a whole bunch of Sohan and a whole bunch of Zubac. I think that's going to be my prediction. And as usual, I don't know if we're going to be able to get too much of these studs. because there's really not a lot of value to make that work. But we shall check it out. Okay, so before we run the Sims, let's take a look and see what we would be getting. We'd be getting, there it is, right? 98% Zubac, 87% Sohan, 75% Clarkson, pretty much all the guys that we mentioned. That's the reality, that NBA is a very projection-based sport. And the people that project well are the guys that you're going to want to play. Now, does that mean you have to play the chalkiest of them all? No, but you're really not going to do yourself any favors getting too far off the board. I think using the Sims is kind of good enough. I mean, I don't think you need to force in low ownership. So let's just take a look. So we ran the Sims here. And then we'll take a look and see how that affects things. Now, first of all, Gary Trent Jr. is showing up in the pool quite a bit. Go back to direct fill. And even when you sim this, you're still getting like a big amount of these top three guys. Zubac, Sohan, Kyrie. So one of the things you can do if you wanted to is you could, make sure that you have a minimum number of unique players in each lineup. And what that'll do is diversify some of this exposure away. Now, again, when you do that, though, you're costing yourself because you're not playing the top 50 lineups anymore, for example. So we got to keep an eye on this. So we look at this either min destination ROI or max destination ROI, all these metrics, see how they react when we jam up the min uniques. Okay. And then, yeah, you see when it went from min uniques 3 to min uniques 4, you got a big downgrade. So we'll go back to min uniques 3. And as you'll see, I mean, that kind of smoothed out a little bit, but you're still just getting a ton of these three guys. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that's just the way it goes in the NBA. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to rank these contests to see what happens if a lineup shows up in multiple contest sims. Do you get it in both? No, we have it set to be unique rank. So let's make sure that the lineup that's going to be impacted the most is the one that gets the best, who gets the lineup first. Okay, if it was supposed to appear in all of them. And so what I like to do is I like to put the lottery like all the way at the bottom of this. Like it's not as important to get that top lineup in the lottery just because of the way, zillions of people are playing it. Okay, so now it's on autofill, and we will hit save to contests. And it should be good to go. And then we just put them into DraftKings. Now, you might ask, if the slate doesn't start for 7 hours or 8 hours even, why are you going through all this now? You're just going to change everything anyway. Well, again, this is something that people don't talk enough about. I mean, the NBA and using this technology is very speed intensive. In other words, when you're playing like kind of high volume and a lot of lineups like I'm playing, if and the NBA, the news comes out pretty close to lock sometimes, and you have to know how to allocate your human time, and if you know that you can bang out this entire process in 8 minutes as opposed to 18 minutes as opposed to 28 minutes, that helps you. Okay, so the more practice you get actually banging this stuff around, and screwing around with the software, the better it's going to reward you in the long run, because it's going to save you time. And we always talk about, time management issues in life and things like that. And it kind of shows you how the software behaves. Okay, just for fun, let's do the same thing with FanDuel. We'll do the same thing with FanDuel. So first thing we're going to do is again, we're going to upload our lineups from FanDuel, and it takes one other step. It doesn't automatically launch it for you to SaberSim. You actually have to download that file to your to your system first, and then upload it here, and then these contests emerge, and then we can go back. Well, we can build one or build two. I don't know if I actually did a FanDuel projection update yet, so we're just going to use the SaberSim ones for now. But let's just build 5,000 lineups. Just to forget what projections you use for the purposes of this discussion. Let's show you how to actually use them. So again, same thing. That you're using FanDuel's projections. You blast 5,000 lineups. You see what it takes: 40 seconds. And I would say I'd like to. But I guess it's worthwhile to look to see who you get before you sim everything, just to make sure that there's no huge software glitch or something like that. I mean, every once in a while you will see that. You'll see, a guy with like 140-point projection by mistake, and it makes mistakes. And it is good to, I guess, give the eye test just for like 5 seconds. Okay, so let's just take a look and see the difference in FanDuel. Already you see, so Chris Paul, I guess, is really cheap over there. What is he, 5,400? And then there's Gary Trent, and then John Concher. So FanDuel is a different beast than DraftKings today, which is interesting. So we'll do the same thing though. We'll run the contest sim just like that. And to my point about how important projections are in the NBA. I mean, you see the difference between the regular SaberSim upside lineup builds and what's going to be the sim builds, and the difference is very, very small. Whereas baseball and hockey, for example, it's a pretty big distinction. So let's just go min uniques. Let's see how many min uniques we can get to without getting the system mad at us. So min destination ROI 71. Let's track that one. Ooh, it goes only down to 68, so that's no problem. Let's go to min uniques 3. Where does that go? Where does that bang us? From 68 down to 61. That's not a big deal. Then we go to 4. Then that's going to go from 61 down to 36. So that's a little bit too much. So we come up to 3, go into autofill. And again, same as before, we want to put that lineup, which has the greatest impact, up at the top. And then we'll save the contest here. And you see it's not as much. Well, it's still 90% Chris Paul. And yeah, Chris Paul is not exactly the guy with the greatest amount of upside, but that's the way it is. Okay, so I have a little bit of time here. So this is going to be, I guess, sort of bonus. If you guys want to hang out for this, you can. I'll do an early, just to get more practice. I'm going to do a both the NHL and the NFL, as far as just a regular build and a regular sim. So let's just do this. Those you show up now, we're done with the NBA. But just to show you how we do this, right? NFL, I didn't even run projections yet, so we're just going to use SaberSims for the purposes of this. But again, the first thing you want to do before you do anything for the day, really, is just remember to do this: is to make yourself dummy lineups so that you can upload them to the SaberSim entry editor. I mean, if you use SaberSim, obviously, which I recommend that you do. So it's got all my contests, got everything in here. We're playing 100 in the lottery, 1 in the Wildcat, 1 in the Spy, and it saves all this data so that you can run your sims. And it ostensibly, well, allegedly, it's going to put the contests in the right order for you in the contest that you want to, that they most belong in. So one thing again, if you're going to run this here, you have to change a little, 2 things on DraftKings before it lets you build anything. And we're going to build 2,000 lineups. And as we do this, we could talk about the actual games. So, Houston Jets, you have, I don't know, it seems like a kind of a low total, but then again, the Jets, haven't exactly put up big scores. So it's a pick 'em game. I don't know. I have a feeling this, there are guys that can deliver here, but we'll see what we get when we run this. So again, the first thing we do is they run the 2,000 lineups. Again, no other changes, no other nothing, and let's just see what we would get without any screwing around. So it looks as though in the flex, it would be Rodgers, Hall, Joe Mixon. The Jets, like 42% defense. Wow. And then when you look at the captain, it looks as though it's mostly everything is going to be Joe Mixon and Breece Hall. Now, what this is showing us again is what is ranking these by this metric here, this Saber Score single game metric. And if you want to get into the weeds, you click on the eyeball here, and it says what the formula is. It's 100 times the sim optimals, and then you add 0.8 times of some of the projections, and then you subtract 0.2 average ownership. That is not particularly aggressive. You want to see something more like 95th, 99th percentile outcomes if you want to get aggressive. So I would not, if you're playing the lottery, go with this type of ranking system. In the main, in something small, I think you could do that. So let's click on Run Contest Sim and see what we get when we tell SaberSim to actually put these lineups where they're supposed to be in the particular contest that it knows that we're playing. We shall see what this does. Okay, so right off the bat, you do see some good. Oops. 1 second. You do see some good distinctions here. Like you're getting Tank Dell at the top ownership, and I think this is actually pretty sharp in general to play the receivers in the captain as opposed to running backs and quarterbacks. They just have like a lot. I don't know. They have a lot more variance, sure, than running backs and quarterbacks, but their ceiling is just as good, if not better. So I actually like this set, And if you want, you could, decide that you don't want any, Braden Allen in the captain, Xavier Hutchinson in the captain, Tyler Conklin, and you trade those in for another lineup. But I think this is actually a pretty good way to start. Now, again, is this going to win you like the 200,000 by itself? Probably not. You're going to probably need to do stuff like, what is John Mechie the third? At 2,800, getting 25% of them, that's not bad. It looks as though SaberSim is doing a pretty good job with their sims of getting, I don't want to say necessarily unique lineups, but getting pretty close. And check some of these geo mean numbers out on some of these lineups. I really think that they're committed to doing this. You usually don't get 21, 22, 19, 16, 18. Even to do a geo mean of 19 is all I would really ask for to get unique, and they're getting pretty close. So that is something to think about. So what that also will allow me to do is I can go start doing geo mean stuff because organically I'm getting close enough to it. This is actually pretty good. Like I'm looking at all these geo means, like the geo mean of 20 for this contest usually is projecting about 6 or 7 dupes. which is really good. I mean, like if you can get away with 6-7 dupes across your lineups, that's not bad. Let's confirm that just for fun. Let's pull up the Geo mean calculator and see what I would look for if I only wanted 5 dupes as far as the Geo mean goes. First, let's put in, let's see how many people are in this contest. I imagine a ton. 98,038. All right, so let's just see. 98,038. If you wanted to go 5 dupes, you would get, 19.25. So we're right in there. You know, I think the average dupes of here, the average Geo mean is more like, I think it's more like, about this. So we're going for 10 dupes, and even 10 dupes we can live with as kind of like an average, because maybe you'll get some 1, some 3, some 4, whatever it is. So this isn't bad. So we're actually going to at least start by accepting this. And just to, again, same thing as before, we put in autofill, we put the lineups or the contest that, the biggest buy-in for a single lineup up at the top. And kind of go with that. But let's just look at direct fill. Let's again see what this looked like. Yeah, I kind of like this. Approach. So let's put these in for now. And again, that didn't take us too long, right? Yeah. Okay. And now again, this is not what I signed up for, or whatever you guys signed on for, but just because I'm here anyway, I'm going to do the same thing with the other thing I'm playing tonight, and that would be hockey. See, I have 53 unallocated for lineups. So just for, something to do, to get a little bit closer to a state that I can live with. In other words, when I show up like 6:30 or whatever, and I bang these lineups out, I don't want to start from scratch. I want to start from somewhere. So same thing. We do the same thing again. We'll go hockey, download, upload from here. And then I promise you we won't do anything else. We are going to be doing, just so you guys know, we did a Breeders' Cup video the other day. That's going to stand unless there's some weird scratches. Maybe I'll do an update on that. And then I'm going to do an MMA video a little bit later today. All right. Again, all these are what we're playing in hockey, same as before. Again, I don't have projections done yet, so we're just going to have to go with Saber Sims. Again, we have to save one of these. Build lineups. 5,000. And I like to take a look at the slate here, and what's boy, oh boy, it's like literally 2 slates. There's like a whole bunch of games that start 7 o'clock and maybe 1 at 8. But then you have this one island game at 10:30. And one thing I've learned about hockey is that these late games, they always seem to sweep up all the money. So this Edmonton game, Edmonton's always live. Nashville's always live. San Jose's always live to break people's hearts. So don't count your money when these 7 o'clock games are over. All right, so we ran these first. Let's see what we get. Oh, as I said, San Jose. How about that? Like San Jose with the top-owned piece here. All right, let's go to Run Contest Sims. Ooh, you know what you'll note? For those of you who are paying attention, you know what I did not do in the NFL? Is I did not do the min unique stuff. It's less important when you're in Showdown. Just there's not that many guys to choose from. But sometimes I will. All right, so now we run the Sims. Let's see how it impacts everything. Let's see what kind of exposure we get there. Still San Jose. That's somewhat interesting. So let's go into autofill, and we'll do the same thing as before. We'll start with Well, why did it not do the min destination ROI here? Let's run this again. Let's run this contest sim again. Oh, it did save it. Shoot. Okay, let it run again. And while that's happening, I guess, we could just screw around. I don't know if it's going to bang the system out here. 37 down to 36. Again, we're looking at min destination ROI. Down to 27, not a big deal. Oh, okay, so now it's going to interrupt me. And then min uniques 4. Sorry, it was down to 27. Oh, so we can get there. And then min uniques 5. That's probably when it crashes. Not even. Wow, so you can get a lot of min uniques here in the hockey slate tonight. All right, so that's probably enough. So min uniques 5. But the only thing you want to make sure you do in hockey, though, is make sure you don't have any of these bow wow stacks. So you have to end up, I unclick 4 2s, 3 2s, 4 2 2s, 5s, 4 2s, 3 3s, even 3 2 2s, like all these. I just want 4 3s, 5 2s, and 6s. And then we'll see what we get. Let's get rid of this, get rid of this. And now we'll go back to the min unique stuff and see. I want to see now how that impacted it. So we start off with 30.7 with min uniques 2. Then we'll go 25 with min uniques 3. Then we'll go 18 in min uniques 4. So we're still fine. The min uniques 5 sort of crashed a little bit, but we can get away with min uniques 5. And then when we do that, see our stack distribution become much smoother. So I kind of like this. So let's go to autofill again, same as any other contest. You put the tournament you want near the top of the list. And there we go. Save the contest. Boom. Upload. And we should be good to go. And unfortunately, there is one other thing that I forgot to do. Just make sure, did I do NBA FanDuel yet? Yeah, I did. I think I did, right? Yep. The only thing I didn't do is NFL FanDuel. So let's do that. And then I'll be prepared. Let's take a look and see what NFL FanDuel looks like, by the way. I haven't, looked at this at all. Oh, my God. I don't even give a – well, let's first, again, same as before, right? Contests. And when you do this once, when it's like in the middle of the day or you have a little bit of a break, then you don't have to worry about doing it again. Because then what happens is SaberSim remembers what you did last. And again, upload. And one thing that's important to note, I don't know what you guys are like out there, what kind of people you are, or whatever, how old or what your background is, but I'm I'll say I'm like 57, okay, and while I'm pretty smart with technology, I'm not by any means a tech wizard. So just to see that if I can kind of like blast through this stuff like as quickly as I'm doing it. It's because it's designed that way. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to be particularly great with the technology. Now, again, if you're a really good coder and you're really good with this type of stuff, you can automate things. Every once in a while, I try to do that. I had a couple of software guys try to automate this process for me. It's kind of hard because you do want to make some changes along the way. Okay, so this is what FanDuel would look like. And 61% Rodgers, Adams, Schultz, Breece Hall. Boy, a lot of kickers, 28%. But again, same thing. Like these are the regular guys and captains, like the running backs. But with any luck, when we run the Sims, I wonder if you get different exposures. Remember, we ran the Sims on DraftKings. It went from having almost all running backs and some quarterback exposures to getting more of the wide receivers. And maybe, again, it's kind of programmed and coded to do that, to realize the distribution of those players. And look at the same thing, right? When you sim it, it ends up with the 3 receivers up at the top. I think it's very helpful to know that. And I think that it's one of the reasons I do this. I mean, this is like I think that's a very useful, revelation. That you take the same projections and the same optimizer, whatever it is, but for showdown, when you run the sims, the big difference is in captain, running backs, quarterbacks fall to the wide receivers. And I'm betting that that's because, well, first of all, obviously the running backs are, higher owned, captain, but also the wide receivers, they have very, very good GPP-ish type ranges of outcomes. Okay. And again, we're going to do all this again, but I mean, think about this. I mean, the projections we already did, right? That I do the grunt work for you, to some degree. But in this type of use of the optimizers is very, very easy. Okay, so that's going to do it for this. We're going to probably be back around 6, maybe 7:15 because of when these slates start.